Misinformation, disinformation, fake news, name it as you want it, this is a disturbing trend for our societies and for the media industry. This is why we at the Center for Media, Data and Society are dealing with this issue. We research this phenomenon, but we also want to share the findings of our work with the outside world and especially with the young generation.
We thought we would organize a workshop where we're discussing misinformation in a bigger context, focusing on the history, the economic and media environment in which this is happening, and the environment, the systems that enable misinformation and the spreading of misinformation.
Basically, there are three parts of what Claire Wardle at First Draft calls information disorder. There is misinformation, which is basically any false information where you don't assume intent. It could be just a meme, a false photo, a false video, but you don't understand why it's spreading. Then there's disinformation. That has like a meaning behind it, right? Like someone is trying to convey something to you, they're trying to change your mind, they're trying to swing your vote. There is a method there. And then there's malinformation, which could include varying degrees of false information, but it might be propaganda, it might be hate speech, it might be something that doesn't neatly fall into the basket of deliberately false information.
I think it's really valuable for students, especially students, to really understand, again, the sort of the fundamentals of how credible information is constructed and maybe how disinformation is constructed, and also especially in a country like Hungary, to really understand more from a global perspective what's going on in the rest of the world, and understand that a lot of what you're seeing maybe in this country are similar trends to what's happening outside Hungary, and there may be solutions or different approaches to addressing these problems that people are working on in other countries which might be useful here in Hungary.
Disinformation, like I said, is a global problem, but in many parts of the world, I would say in many parts of every country in the world, there are many people who still aren't aware of how much of a problem it is. There are so many people who don't understand or don't recognize when they're actually reading misinformation, and they don't know how to tell the difference between misinformation and legitimate journalism. And so I think workshops like this really help empower local leaders to begin making a difference in their countries, to raise awareness of the problem. And then once that awareness has been raised, I think people are a little bit more open to solutions.
The level of critical media literacy is very low, not only in Hungary but all around the world. And we have to teach this topic not only in the primary and secondary school, but in the high education as well.
I think the number one thing regular people can do to avoid falling for misinformation is just having a healthy dose of skepticism. So anything you see, whether or not it's on social media, on TV, online, just always think, why is someone telling me this? Where are they coming from? What's their motive? What is this organization about? Always do a little more research on where you're getting your information, and never take anything at face value, even from sources that you trust.
The more people who do that, who are responsible news consumers and who are proactive informers for their neighbors and their fellow citizens, they're the ones who will make the difference. And so I'm really hoping that the students here are the first, not the last, but the first to make that kind of difference.
Students are the next generation of not only media and journalists, but news consumers. And it's important for not only misinformation experts and journalists to talk to each other, but for misinformation experts and journalists to talk to students, the next generation of democracy. Because if they're not equipped to fight back against misinformation, if they're not equipped to decipher what's credible and what's not credible, then we're not going to have good democracies in 10, 20 years.